What do you think? I think it looks much cooler on me.
One of the biggest friendship red flags is having a friend that copies literally every single thing that you do. And I'm not just talking about the friend that, accidentally buys the same top as you or maybe gets an outfit that's somewhat similar to you. I'm not talking about that kind of friend. I'm talking about the friend that copies your lingo, that copies your hairstyle, that copies every outfit, that copies maybe your TikTok videos and your branding, that copies you to the T.
Have you ever had a girl slowly start copying you? At first, it's just an outfit, which is cute. Then suddenly, she's taking on your mannerisms, posting the same captions as you, copying the way you talk, and trying to befriend your closest circle. Then suddenly, she's talking to your ex or your current man as if she belongs in your place. You're not paranoid. You're witnessing something psychologists call identity diffusion and maladaptive mirroring behaviors. When girls, or anyone really, try to steal others' lives, styles, or even romantic partners, the behavior often reflects deep psychological issues related to self-worth, identity, and insecurity. Here's a deeper dive into why some people may attempt to mimic or even steal someone else's life in an all-encompassing way. This video is about the real psychology behind copycat behavior, when it crosses the line between admiration into obsession. Let's talk about the girls who don't just envy your life, they try to become you. Hello my kittens, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the psychology of a copycat. The reason I was inspired to make this video is because I saw a TikTok recently about this girl whose life was completely copied by someone else, and someone built an entire following by copying other people. And it wasn't even in like a soft copying way, right? It was legitimate plagiarism. And as social media becomes more advanced, I do think that it's important to some extent to give people credit, especially if they came up with an idea first. And it was different than just following trends. It kind of felt like this person was copying people's mannerisms verbatim in an almost creepy way, very much so taking someone's idea and life to the extreme. I was interested in the psychology behind why people plagiarize in the first place or why they feel the need to do so. Also, this is the makeup for today. I was planning on doing a different video, but this one just felt cool. So I've been loving red and black. It's giving Ladybug. I just had so much fun with this one.
I knew one day that the internet would come for this serial content stealer and gaslighter because I was her first ever victim. So if you haven't seen Taylor's video, she talks about how this girl, Yuyi Chua, has been building an entire platform in the hundreds of thousands of followers, often plagiarizing her content and that of other creators verbatim. And when I say verbatim, I mean word for word, mannerism for mannerism, frame for frame, verbatim, basically wearing their skin. From this plagiarized content, Yuyi has received recognition, accolades, even getting on shit like Instagram's best creators list or whatever. Where this gets real creepy is if you go through her platforms, you can see that every few months or so, Yuyi picks a new main target or victim. And she's been doing this for years. Again, how do I know this? Because I was her first ever main target slash victim in 2020, and I've been quietly observing her ever since.
Hi. This girl has built an entire platform off of copying other people. Not taking inspo from someone. No, I mean actually copying people, and I'm the main target. Yay. Let me show you what I mean. So we've seen butterfly resin tops, but this is a bow butterfly resin top.
I love a good resin top, so when I saw this bow butterfly resin top,
It's a UV reactive dress.
let's style this UV reactive dress.
It has that same pink iridescent look with all these gold accents.
See this opalescent pearly pink bag to go with. The details are
It feels like jelly.
actually like jello.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Pa, 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 pa.
No, that's the part.
People I absolutely do not trust.
People I absolutely do not trust.
Girls who snap a quick picture of you and send it to your crush for no reason at all other than to embarrass you. Or
Girls who snap a quick picture of you and send it to your crush for absolutely no reason.
they post a super ugly picture of you on Instagram and you're like, can you please delete that? And they're like, girl, stop, you look so good.
Girls that post pictures of you on social media or a video and you ask her to delete it and she's like, girl, stop, you look so good.
Girls who brag about talking or doing stuff with somebody who has a girlfriend.
Girls who brag about talking or doing stuff with a guy that literally has a girlfriend.
There's a difference between inspiration and imitation. Being inspired is healthy. We all adopt traits from people we admire. Style, confidence, even language. That's called social modeling and it's normal. But a copycat doesn't just borrow, she duplicates. She mimics your voice, your jokes, your taste in music, your aesthetic. until it feels like you're looking in a weird off-brand mirror. Psychologists would say it isn't about admiration. It's a symptom of a deeper identity issue, specifically low concept clarity, meaning that they don't have a strong sense of who they are, so they latch on to someone who does. The behavior we're talking about falls under something called identity diffusion, a term from developmental psychology. This happens when someone hasn't formed a stable sense of self, who they are, what they value, what makes them unique, so they fill in the blanks by copying other people. Here's the kicker. The more confident or self-assured that you seem, the more appealing that you become to someone with identity diffusion. You're like the perfect emotional template for that person. They're also usually struggling with low self-esteem, fear of rejection, poor boundary awareness, and externalized self-worth, meaning they only feel good about themselves if others approve of them. So instead of becoming someone, they try to replace someone. Let's take a step further. A lot of copycat behavior stems from unresolved attachment trauma, especially anxious, preoccupied attachment styles. These are people who didn't receive consistent emotional mirroring or validation as children from their caregivers. So now they try to subconsciously merge with others to feel secure about themselves. This is also linked to emotional dysregulation, people-pleasing behaviors, and sometimes even dissociation from their own identity. They don't necessarily mean to steal, they just genuinely don't know how to build something original. And then when envy gets mixed into that, it turns into toxic admiration. Jealousy becomes obsession. They want your energy, your lifestyle, your confidence, without doing all the emotional labor it takes to build their own. Think about Cassie from Euphoria. You'll see or you'll notice after watching Euphoria that Cassie, when she's in her most vulnerable, insecure state, she literally tries to copy Maddie verbatim, how she talks, how she walks, and tries to steal her man, essentially. Now, let's talk about the part that hits hardest. When she starts going after your man, or the guy you used to be with. Psychologists call this relational triangulation, and it happens when someone tries to insert themselves into your emotional or romantic dynamic to gain power and affirmation. It's literally not about him. It's not always about him, it's about what he represents. Validation, social proof, and the final step in becoming you. For some people, taking your partner feels like they're winning. Like they've succeeded in overtaking your identity. It's like psychologically asserting your dominance. Ego-driven, delusional, and it's rooted in deep emotional emptiness. Sometimes it's not even about love, it's about conquest and control. There's also something called mirroring, which is when someone unconsciously imitates the gestures, expression, or tone of another person to bond and feel accepted. In healthy doses, it's normal. Like, think about code switching, because you can live in a city and you kind of adopt the accent. In your professional environment, you start talking a bit different, or you kind of try to lose the accent a little bit. You know, I'm a Cali girl. I have the Valley girl accent that comes out whenever I'm there. Also grew up in the East Coast, so, you know, I can kind of code switch depending on where I am or who I'm hanging out with. When someone with a weak sense of self starts excessively mirroring you, it becomes psychological dependency. They feel empty without someone else to model after. So it's almost like they try to absorb you. This is especially common in individuals with borderline personality traits, codependency, or those who are in a state of emotional crisis. You might start to feel drained, violated, and overall creeped out. And that's your nervous system telling you that something's not right here. Some individuals have trouble forming their own identity, so they look to others for cues on how to live, how to dress, and even how to love. They might feel like they don't truly know who they are, so they adopt someone else's life as their own. Need for external validation. These individuals often seek validation from external sources, like social media, relationships, or approval from others. By copying someone who seems admired or successful, they hope to feel validated too. They may believe that by replicating someone's style or their life, they'll automatically earn some kind of love and attention that the original person receives. Insecurity and low self-worth. Feeling inadequate. A person may struggle with intense feelings of inadequacy or inferiority. Seeing someone who seems to have it all figured out, a signature style, a loving relationship. Success can trigger jealousy and the desire to emulate their entire life. It's not just about copying the look, but wanting the whole experience. It represents something that they feel like they lack. Fear of rejection. For some, there's a deep-rooted fear that they won't be accepted as they are. So they adopt someone else's persona to feel accepted. They might mimic someone else's relationship because they want the same perceived affection or social status that the other person has. Jealousy and envy. Competition and resentment. In some cases, it's a competitive mindset. A person might feel resentment or rivalry toward the original person and may think that by taking over their life, whether through relationships, style, or social status, they are winning or taking over control. Inability to create originality. They may not feel capable of generating anything truly original on their own, so they resort to copying what works for others, often with the hope that they can replace them in certain circles, friendships, relationships, etc. Psychological dependency and narcissistic traits. Individuals with narcissistic personality disorder or deep psychological dependency might engage in this behavior. They might feel a strong need to align themselves with someone that they perceive as superior, copying not just their style, but mannerisms, relationships, and more. This helps them feel more powerful and important in social situations. They might see themselves as incapable of creating their own uniqueness without it. Like, they can't be the cool girl without copying the cool girl because they don't know what it feels like to feel cool, but they still want that sense of control. Because oftentimes, most people don't have control on how they're perceived by others. If you can seemingly control how others perceive you, copying just feels easier. Emotional manipulation. In some cases, it goes beyond copying for admiration. A person might steal a romantic partner or friend's life as a form of control, manipulation, or dominance. They might feel entitled to take what another person has if they believe it gives them a sense of power or makes them better than others. Trauma and attachment issues. Girls or anyone who's experienced abandonment, neglect, or deep attachment wounds might look to other people's relationships as a way to fill the void that they feel within themselves. If they've grown up with feelings of instability or lack of emotional connection, they might try to recreate lives or relationships that they see as perfect to give themselves a sense of safety, control, or belonging. There's the fear of being alone. Some people can't stand the thought of being alone, so they go to extreme lengths to ensure that they're always surrounded by a perfect life. They may try to insert themselves into others' relationships or social circles as a way to feel secure and avoid the feeling of loneliness. No consideration for others. In some extreme cases, a person might try to steal someone's life with no regard for the emotional harm that it causes. This could be due to a lack of empathy, which is very prevalent in NPD and other personality disorders, where the individual sees no issue with taking what they want to boost their own ego, image, or social standing. Attention seeking. Some might engage in stealing someone's partner or life to get attention or validation from others, even if it's bad attention. They may not care about the harm it causes others, as the attention that they receive in return becomes their main motivation. Think about all the songs that are sung about stealing people's man. Romanticizing the other person's life. Idealization. They may idealize the person whose life they're trying to steal. The girl being copied could represent everything that they wish they had. Beauty, a perfect life, perfect relationship, social success, confidence, etc. This leads to the desire to directly replicate their life, including romantic relationships, friendships, because they believe that it will complete them in some way. Fantasy versus reality. The person might also live in a fantasy world where they believe by mimicking the other person's life, they'll achieve happiness or fulfillment without realizing that the grass is not always greener on the other side. The other person that they might be comparing themselves to might have issues that nobody wants to deal with. There's a show when I was younger, it was called Behind Mansion Walls, where it talks about oftentimes like the people that you put on a pedestal are the richest people, right? The ones with so much money. Oftentimes like horrible things happen within their households. You never know the life that someone else is living. The person you idolize and the person you might look down upon, they might have something that you'll never have, or they might be dealing with something that you could never deal with, you know? Enabling factors from social media and pop culture. Comparison culture. Social media exacerbates this behavior by creating an environment where people are constantly comparing themselves to each other. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok make it extremely easy for someone to look like they have a perfect life, leading to the urge to emulate their life, their image, their relationship, their lifestyle. The performance of identity. On social media, people often curate their lives, showcasing idealized versions of themselves. For someone who feels deeply insecure or envious, it may seem like these curated personas are the only acceptable way to live, which could trigger the urge to steal different elements of those personas. In short, the girls who steal other people's lives often do so because they're desperately seeking validation, struggling with a lack of identity, or attempting to fill an emotional void. Their actions stem from deeply rooted insecurities and an unhealthy fixation on what other people have, leading them to believe that by mimicking others or taking someone else's life will fix their problems. So what do you exactly do when someone's trying to steal your life and you feel really vulnerable and don't know how to protect your energy? Here are some tips that you can apply. Don't shrink to make them comfortable. Keep evolving, keep being authentic, because you're not responsible how someone else reacts to your light. Number 2, keep clear boundaries. If she's invading your space, your friendships, or emotional safety, you can call it out or distance yourself. Don't gaslight yourself. Don't go out of your way to talk to that person, even though a lot of people, gravitate towards people-pleasing behaviors. Even if they come up to you, you can always find polite excuses to get out of the situation. You can always tell someone that, oh, I need to use the restroom, or you can tell your friends who actually care about you that, hey, this person makes me uncomfortable. I'd rather not be invited to spaces that you know that this person's gonna be there. Number 3, avoid ego battles. You don't need to prove anything. She can copy the surface, but she'll never be you. She'll never have your soul or your essence or what makes you you. So don't attack the person. It's not worth it. You're just gonna end up hurting yourself, because I know a lot of people, they get mad at the other woman, but that's not your problem. If anything, that's your man's fault. Number 4, remember that imitation is a cry for help. It's not a compliment, it's a wound. Someone who actually bonds over a common interest, like say it's sense of fashion, people with secure sense of self, it's almost like a shared thing that you do together if you're dressing similar. Like I love dressing similar as my friends because I know that we all dress differently on different days. How you dress can be so fluid, and it's not something that someone owns, as opposed to someone doing it in a very weird and sneaky way. And if it's starting to affect your mental health, block, distance yourself, and release it. You're allowed to protect your peace. And if you need to get, therapy for it, or girl, I would move. No, just kidding. You can't always run away from your problems. I'm more avoidant, so I find myself isolating and stuff. But obviously, I don't think that's necessarily healthy. Girl, if your friends are enabling it, you can always drop them too. I know it's easier said than done, but if that's what it comes down to, that's also okay. You're not a bad person for distancing yourself from people who they don't have your best interest in mind. The truth is, if someone else is trying to steal your life, it's because you've built something magnetic. You have something within yourself that's admirable. But you are not the clothes you wear. You're not your relationship. You're not an aesthetic that you're embodying in the moment. You are a soul. You are your own resilience. You have your own sense of originality. Nobody can ever replicate that, no matter what. And your essence can't be copied. If this resonated with you, please comment down below. I want to hear about your experiences, if you've ever had an experience with a copycat or someone who has exhibited certain behaviors like that. Let's unpack it, psychoanalyze it, and release it together. Bye, my kittens. Anyways, tell me what other topics you want me to talk about. I had a lot of fun filming this video.